Mr. X in front of the X Mansion. And this may be a controversial video because we have a black Magneto. You've tuned into the Extreme channel. Yes, you heard that right. Is this a black Magneto? His face is black? Well, you know what? We don't really give a shit what someone's skin color is. But this is a custom 1/4 scale Magneto from Age of Apocalypse. Custom statue, limited run, private commission, $800 or $900. I think they made 65, 70 of them. If you really need to know whether it was 65 or 70, ask Google. But Google won't know. Doesn't know everything. Boom, Mr. X does. Actually, I don't know much, but let's dive into this guy really quick. So this is Magneto from Age of Apocalypse. What does that mean? Well, Age of Apocalypse is a timeline of comics where it's kind of an alternate reality. And ironically, I think there's time traveling and crap like that that goes back into the regular reality. I actually have the first omnibus back there, but I haven't read it. An omnibus, if you're unfamiliar with that, it's a huge book about this thick that has comics in a semi-sequential order about a specific story. But in this story, Magneto is actually, his life is saved by Professor X sacrificing his life, from what I understand. And he feels bad, and he actually turns into a good guy. He recruits the X-Men, he marries Rogue, has a kid, and they fight Apocalypse, hence the name Age of Apocalypse. And there's some things going on with this statue, different costume, his face is blacked out in one of the portraits, that I don't know why, and I don't want to know. So if you're a troll, go ahead and tell me why. But otherwise, I want to read the omnibus and find out. But it's not like it's a big movie spoiler or anything. By the way, screw you trolls that whenever a new movie comes out, like Star Wars or Endgame, I've blocked all of you. You post something on my channel about that, spoiling it for everyone. I don't really care. I don't lose sleep, but don't spoil it for everybody else. Hashtag rant over. I'm kind of aggressive today because this is the 8th custom statue in a row I've reviewed, and I haven't taken a shit in like a day. Yeah. This morning, there was no poops dropping. TMI. TMI. But let's dive into this guy. I'm really excited to have him. He comes from the same custom group that did the Namer that I recently reviewed. And he's really well done. I purchased him because I love Magneto. I love this custom group. Magneto is one of my top 5 characters. This is my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th Magneto statue I have in hand. I have a few kits with painters, and I have about 3 more on order. And this is, I like this one because it's different, because it's the Age of the Apocalypse version, and it's not your traditional Magneto, even though you're going to see a lot of the same elements in this piece. Let's measure him for you guys. He has a decent sized base, which we'll talk about in design, but it's essentially a square with slanted corners, so it's about 17.5 inches wide, and I'm going to suspect it's the same on the depth. It's the same. And his tallest point is probably 26 inches. Ooh, that's kind of hard to tell because of the way the base is. I'm going to say he's 28 inches. Okay. Well, that actually answers a question on where I'm going to display him at. Right now, I think I'm going to put him with some other villains, X-Men villains, even though it's the different storyline. I'll show a picture at the end of this review for that. But let's use him reviewing the extreme scale. We're going to use him reviewing the extreme scale, or if you guys prefer, we can review him using the extreme scale. Here's the extreme scale. It's a 1 through 5 or a T through X rating. And let's dive in with the first category of concept. Now, what's unique about this is the material reference obviously is from Age of Apocalypse, which I have not read yet, so I can't tell you if it's accurate or not. So really, we're just going to look at, does it make sense and is it cool? It is. Move on. Just kidding. That could be all my reviews. I like it. Next. Boom. I'm in a weird mood, so if you're not digging today's review, get over it, Snowflake. But he's sitting on a mound of metal. Nothing new with the Magneto. There's always metal in the base, it seems like. Sometimes the metal is a Sentinel piece. Sometimes it is just a boneyard, whatever it is. This is completely futuristic, almost looks like some type of building or machine. And of course, he is manipulating the parts. The parts are breaking, they're moving around. And he has a semi-floating nature to him, very similar to another custom Magneto I'm going to talk about in a second. And there's a piece on his leg, and he's really roided out. We're going to talk about that when we get to the paint and sculpt. He's really roided out. He has his hand out to stop somebody or do more motion. He has 3 different portraits, which are all very different, but they tell the same story. His cape is flowing in the wind. So it's your classic Magneto. Different costume, as you can see. I like the fact that the base is still showing his power, but it's not your traditional Sentinel or World War II tank. And this is from the future. I think the Age of Apocalypse line is from the future. Of course, whenever they wrote that comic book, I think it was like 10 years ago, this may be the future they were talking about. Which with the earthquakes, the wars, the viruses, kind of crazy, huh? So if you have a bucket list, you better get that crap done. I only have 2 more things on my bucket list. One is I want to see my, I guess 3 things. I want to hold grandkids. I want to see my children get married, walk down the aisle. And I want to visit Australia. That's it. I've hit everything else. But, so I like the concept. It's nothing new, nothing unique. Like I said, the floating aspect, which we'll look at more during design, is very similar to this Magneto right here. Very much reminds me of that. One leg is pegged in, the other one's floating. And it's not just that Magneto, but this one just reminds me most of that one. But I think they did it in a safe design way where he's not going to lean, which we'll talk about in a second. So I think the concept on this is a V. It's very nice. They took Magneto, they did the different version of him, but they didn't get incredibly creative. But that doesn't mean it's not good. Very nice is a good score. Now we'll talk about the design of Magneto. You always have a few things to worry about. We want to make him fly. It's one of the ways to display his power. We want to make metal being manipulated, but we want it to last a long time. We don't want it to be complicated. We don't want it to look stupid. The 2 unique things. One is this piece right here is magnets, and you don't know where the contact is. So I pretty much just rubbed it all over. Yeah, I did. I rubbed it all over until it clicked into place, but it's a very strong magnet, so it clicks into place really easy. The rest were all keys, and there was one little piece about yay big, which I could not figure it out. And since it's Chinese New Year, there's not a lot of communication from factories. I guess that was supposed to be a metallic magnet piece, and it's aluminum, so it doesn't even stick to anything. Kind of a funny story. But it's a tiny piece, not needed anyway. So the base was a number of pieces. Magneto, his arms, I think his arms are permanently attached. I can't even remember. I unboxed this last night and I can't remember. Different portraits, the cape, and then up here a little purple piece that kind of holds his cape in. And this piece right here goes in. So I want to talk about a few of these things with design. First of all, I think the base takes up too much room. These side pieces right here, they could have got rid of them and just had him on the ball. Space is the enemy of us collectors, so that would have made a lot more sense to me. I think that's a negative. Positive on the cape, it's resin or PVC or a mix between the two, so it's really light. No worries about it falling over or anything like that. So I think the fact that they have him solidly with 1 foot down and 1 foot floating, I don't think there's going to be any issues because it's not that uneven and the cape is very light. So that was very smart engineering. This right here you have to have because it leaves a nasty keyhole. And it's the only piece of metal. I don't think it's needed. I don't think it adds anything to the statue. It sometimes looks out of place. I think they could have gone without that. Also with the design, I wish they would have, and this may be more of a conceptual thing, I wish they would have made more of the metal manipulated and turned and crushed and all over the place to really show his true power. They did a good job with the physique of him showing how powerful he is. But one thing I really like too is they have 3 head sculpts. They're all Age of Apocalypse, so he has the longer hair. Let's look at him first. Here is one without a helmet. And we're going to review all these close up because they are phenomenal with the paint and sculpt. This is my least favorite, and it's mainly because he's doing an Elvis lip. And we'll talk more about that later. Then we essentially have that same one. even the same hair flow, with a mask on and a different expression with his mouth. Notice it's not a shiny helmet, and look very closely at this helmet, because the next true Age of Apocalypse version right here, not only is the helmet very different, not only color and design, but this is where he has the black face. So 3 different options. I'm probably going to do one of the final 2. I wish that the other portraits weren't as good, because I want to display something different, and the black face would have accomplished that, but the other ones are really good, so they're very tempting to display as well. So overall design, I think there's a lot of good things and bad things, but I don't think there's that many bad things. The only negative I would say is the base is too big, and this guy right here. It was packaged extremely well. So let's give the design a score of a W, or a 4 out of 5. This is a rail. And now we're going to jump into the paint and sculpt. And as I said on the Namer video, here's a link to that, by the way. Same company that did this, a Phoenix Force Namer. This is all sculpted by the same guy who did that as well. And very similar stuff on all of his pieces. I have a number of their pieces on the Namer video. It says a number of the pieces that I have. And there's something about the anatomy of Magneto that people just like to roid out. And I don't like it. It's done really well. Like, if you look at, man, was this anatomy sculpted well? I don't like it pairing with Magneto, if that makes sense. But we'll get into that. So here's the base. When I first unboxed this base, I was like, this is kind of dull. It's kind of boring. The more I looked at it, it's not. Look at the gold rivets all over, holding it together. And then I really like the paint choice they used. It's a shiny metallic that's not shiny. I know that's a contradiction, but it's very, very neat. They could have done more, as I said down here, to make the metal more manipulated. Some of it looks like it's melted or he's bent it. And I don't know what this ball in the middle is, but it's cool because it's different. I like the paint job on this. The sculpt on the base is neat. Again, too big. Check out his shoes. A little bit different take. The whole costume's a different take, I guess. But a lot of similarities to your traditional Magneto. The purple shoes, some gray in there, some buckles, some folds to show that it's actually moving. Where the rest of his body, you'll see a few folds too, but most of it's pretty skin tight. Looks good. Colors pop. Same with the shin guards. These are worn. So the rest of him is very clean, and these look damaged and worn. So that doesn't follow the story exactly, but it still looks good. You don't think like, well, that's stupid, just when we're examining it this close. Then you see the straps for those on the back, and you'll also start to see the musculature and the costume. So the costume's different. It's more of a dark red with almost some purple hint in there, or tint, or taint. Not taint. That's for damn sure. And I'm not a huge fan of his legs here. They're really over-muscularized. Just like Namer, the calves are huge. But here's some more shots. The costume looks fantastic. But so many muscles. And you know what? Maybe he is really over-muscularized in this comic, so that could be my ignorance not knowing that. However, the anatomy is sculpted really well for somebody who, you know, never eats a donut. Take a look at his outside underwear. Really great on this. The folds, the different colors of purple in here. It's not a solid color, but there's some cool shading, both on the front and the back. And the other thing you're going to see is this metallic belt he has. I really like this. I assume this is what makes him fly. Well, I mean, that's the metal he manipulates to make him fly. Kind of holds him in the middle of his body here. And it's worn just like the shin pads, but not as marked up. But it's pretty cool. Neat addition to it. His torso is just like his legs. Really, really roided out. A little too much so. Now, I want to clarify. It makes the statue look badass. It really does. It just, to me, it's not Magneto. You can see all the different muscles in here, and, you know, he's changing his position. So on one side, as I talked about with Namer, the muscles are different because his arm is outstretched. And in the middle, there's this really cool dark purple shading with a little more texture to it. There's slight texture on the body, but not much. But I like this. It highlights it really well, makes it pop for being not such a solid color throughout. His arms, again, over-muscularized, makes the statue look badass. Not sure if Magneto would be that muscular, but the anatomy is done well. Look at his wrists and the gauntlets. These are done really well, too. A little bit more shiny as far as like purple than the his underwear. So I like that. It's a little bit different contrast. His gloves look great. They do a great job with paint and sculpt on gloves. Also with his gloves, I like how the undersides of them, they're not all purple, but they're the red color of the statue. Check out his shoulder pads, just like the wrist gauntlets, except even a little more shiny. I like these a lot. Again, it adds just kind of a punch to the statue. Let's look at his cape. His cape looks great. The shading that's in there, the flow of it, looks very clean. Almost looks a little bit sparkly. Then here's that pendant or whatever it is that helps. This doesn't really hold his cape in, but I at first wasn't sure why they did this, but it looks great. Looks really good. Now let's look at his portraits. Let's just start with the unmasked portrait. Or unhelmeted, I guess. First, his hair. And his hair's very similar. It's a little bit different hairstyle on the black shaded face, but his hair looks good. It's really glossy, really shiny. And I think that makes the statue pop, but it doesn't really look like a human. So I think that's a little bit of a miss. And there could have been more strands, but it flows really well. It does flow very well. Look at his face. This sculpt is amazing. This is an amazing face sculpt. From the eyebrows, the lips, the teeth. I love how they all have whited out eyes. I do have a little bit of problem with the paint on this. First, the paint is done phenomenally. It is so clean. I like the red, the teeth in his lips, the teeth, the white in his eyes. There's too much red in here, like blush. It looks like he's wearing blush. If that was gone, this would probably be one of the best face sculpt and paint jobs I've ever seen. And what's interesting is, another reason I don't want to display this, besides the Elvis lip, it's not like this in the other pieces, and maybe it's not because you can't see as much of it. But this is well done. Even though, despite those complaints I have, I would still give this portrait, both the paint and sculpt, an X. This is fantastic. Now here's the mask portrait. Again, not a huge fan of the expression, but I do like it bigger. But not bigger. I do like it better. Let's look at his helmet really quick. I like the shading on this. It flows with the costume. It's not too shiny. I think they did a smart choice. The paint is really, really clean. It's clean throughout this whole statue. Huge props to the factory on this. And one thing here, underneath his portrait, he kind of has this scarf. At first I thought it was like burnt skin, but it's on all the portraits. It's this scarf type material covering his neck. And a lot of the same you see in the portrait here. Like I said, it's not as red or rosy cheeks. The teeth, the paint job and the sculpt on the teeth and the mouth are phenomenal on this piece. Really, really well done. And here's the last helmet. So first, the helmet has a lot more black shading in it. I've used the word shading like 20 times on this statue because it has a lot. I like that. It's different. It's not shiny. And then, as you saw in the portraits, the sculpt where the purple is, and even the shape of the helmet is different. I think I will display this portrait simply for the fact that the helmet's so different. And then you can't see a lot of his face here. Like I said, I'm really interested to find out why it is shaded black like that. I really like this helmet, though. I like this helmet better than the other one. I think the last portrait I actually like better because the paint and sculpt are just so phenomenal on it. So let's grade everything else here. First, paint I think is a no-brainer. This paint job is phenomenal. It's an X. One of the best factory paint jobs I've ever seen. And I recently said that in another review, but this is true. Here, there's no flaws at all. Sculpt's a tough one for me because what they sculpted was sculpted extremely well. It's just not sculpted how I like it, if that makes sense. So it's more of a conceptual thing. So I'm kind of torn. It's definitely not an X because of that. It's kind of between the 3 and 4 rating. But I think we're going to go ahead and... I think the portraits drive it to a 4, the sculpt on that. So the sculpt I think is a W or a rail, 4 out of 5. Now, here's the really tough part, and this is where my extrumbles down the road, and extrumbles where I compare similar statues become key. What is the final grade? Does it have the X factor? I don't think this is an X statue. What really downgrades this is it's a Magneto flying over a metallic base, manipulating metal with his arms stretched out and his cape flowing. I've seen that so many times before. Yes, this is Age of Apocalypse. Now let me be clear. The final grade is definitely a very nice or a rail. I just don't know which one it is. So I'm going to leave the final grade blank on this and let you guys judge whether you agree that it's a V or a W or something else. So here are all the scores. Go ahead and let me know in the comments what your final ranking for this statue is. If I didn't own any other Magneto statues, this would be a rail. I will tell you that 100%. So we will definitely down the road do a comparison video between this and other similar statues. This is way better than Sideshows. There's no doubt about that, in my opinion. Yeah, there are a lot of differences. I love the piece though. Big fan of it. Can't wait to put him with the Magneto collection. Let's see what he looks like next to the other X-Men villains right here. And stay tuned for tomorrow's video, guys. It's a piece that it's either 1 of 2 videos. I don't know which I'm going to drop. One is either a rare custom Silver Surfer, or the other one is a Grail for me that I finally got. So thanks for watching. Take care.